In this video, we're going to talk about how to set up the gun system product. Now even though we're going to be using the sci-fi weapon system in this tutorial, the concepts shown here will apply to any weapon system product that we sell here. So just follow along with your weapons and everything will work out the same way. The first thing we need to do before doing anything else is come up to Workspace, look in our Properties window, and change the signal behavior property, change that to immediate. If you don't make this change, your gun system will not work correctly. It is very important that you make this change. If you have any questions about any issues that pop up, let me know in the Discord server. But yes, this setting definitely needs to be changed to immediate for the gun system to work properly. We also need to run our installer script. So inside Workspace here, we have this installer script. We can hit Control A and Control C to copy. And then we're going to paste it down here in the command bar and click Enter to run it. And that will install the system in the correct places inside of our game. So we can now delete the installer script. And we can actually test this out and see what happens. So once we're in, we can equip a weapon. And it's going to look weird because we haven't set up the animations yet. But, we can shoot. We can zoom in, click V to go into first person. We can run around. And so everything's working here. So now that we've gone through a sample run through of the system, let's talk about the animations. So in your file, you'll see in your workspace, you have all of these dummies all set up here. And some of them are R15, some of them are R6. So for example, these two over here, these are R15. This one here is an R6 dummy. These ones are all R6 up here. All the ones in the back are R15. So what you want to do is upload the animations for all the weapons and put the IDs in the right place. So I'll run you through one example, and then you'll want to replicate that for all weapons and movement animations. So let's take this, let's do an R15 one. Let's do this R15 rifle, for example. We can come up here to the Avatar tab, click Animation Editor, click on the rifle rig. We can just ignore those, it's whatever, it doesn't matter. And these three dots here let us select a variety of different animations. So most weapons have four animations. Some of them have three, just depends on which weapon you're editing. So let's do the rifle idle, for example. So we can select the rifle idle, and then we can click Publish to Roblox, and make sure that this creator is set to the group that is going to have these weapons within it. So for my example, I'll use Lettuce Entertainment. I'll call this rifle idle. And before I click save, I want to mention this: do not close the window yet. So click save, do not close the window, because we want to copy this ID. So click that button to copy the ID. And then in our replicated storage now, in Lettuce Gun Assets, Animations, Default, we were editing the rifle weapon. So we can come into rifle here, and then click on the rifle animation, go to our properties menu, and paste it in there. So now we've set up the idle animation correctly, and we need to do that for every animation for every gun that we want in our game. So, rifle has these animations, pistol has these animations, and so on. And you'll also want to use the movement animations over here to set up the crouch and walk and run animations. So go ahead and set up all the animations, and then once you're done with that, we can continue on with the rest of the tutorial. So now that all the animations are set up, let's talk about all the weapon settings we have available to us. So in our starter pack here, we can find all the weapons that's installed. Let's go to the large rifle, because that's what we were doing the animations on earlier. We have down here a weapon setting folder that contains all the weapon settings for this weapon. And we have a shoot modes folder. And this weapon will have a stun that is not supposed to be in there. So this So I'll explain what that is though. This system supports having multiple shoot modes. So right now we have it set with automatic, but we could also, if we duplicate this, add in a semi folder. And now when you click T on your keyboard or a button on mobile, for example, we can now switch between auto and semi weapons. So we'll talk about that as well. But let's just focus on the automatic weapons for now. Open that up. And we have all of these different settings in here. So activator settings, type is set to automatic. So this is an automatic weapon with 0.1 seconds between each shot. And it has a spread angle of 0.1. And this spread angle is very sensitive. So you can change this as you want to see what it does. But it's very sensitive. So I recommend pretty small numbers here. Type can also be changed to semi, for example. We also have a burst and shotgun type. And now if you're using the burst or shotgun types, you'll have to add in some additional settings. So we'll add another number value here. So let's set up the burst. So we'll set that type to burst. This value, we want to name it burst amount. So burst amount 3. So this will make it so we shoot 3 bullets at a time. And we also want there to be a delay between each bullet. So we can also set another setting here, burst delay. I duplicated the setting, by the way, so I copy and pasted another number value in here. And we want to set this to say 0.05. So there will be 0.05 seconds between each bullet. So that's how you can set up a burst weapon. And now if you want this to be a shotgun, we have some different settings to use. Rather than having a burst delay and burst amount, what we can do is write in a setting here called bullets per shot. And now we will shoot 3 bullets per shot. But we're just going to stick to automatic for this example. So automatic. All right, so that's the activator settings. Ammo settings, we have heat and ammunition, or ammo, sorry. So this is right now set up for heat. And in heat mode, we have a bunch of different settings here. We have a cooldown speed, a cooldown time. So what these do is after you take your shot, after 0.5 seconds, your gun will start cooling down at a speed of, in this example, 40. So it will go down 40% every second after it waits that initial 0.5 seconds. So you can change these to whatever you want to change the way cooling down works. This cooldown duration setting controls how long it takes for the weapon to fully go through the cooldown phase that occurs when you reach 100% heat. So let me show you what I mean. If we shoot and get to 100% heat, just hold it down for a little bit, we see that we have an orange and blue bar. So this is the cooldown time that we're talking about right now. That state that occurs there, that takes 2 seconds to happen. So you can change that to be faster or shorter depending on what you want. This cooldown range, as well as this power-up range, control where those blue and orange zones are. So right now we have the blue cooldown zone between 0.7 and 0.8, which means 70% and 80%. And our power-up range is set to be 20% to 50%. And you can change these numbers to whatever you want. But basically it's just saying if you click your gun inside of these, if you shoot your gun inside of those ranges, you'll either get a cooldown or power-up. Power-ups basically just mean you can shoot your gun without needing to worry about heat for the power-up duration amount of time. So in this case, 3 seconds. Heated reset duration means if you click your gun outside of the cooldown or power-up zone, you're going to go into heated reset mode, and that will lock your gun for 2 seconds. Heat per shot is the amount of heat that's generated every time you shoot. Damage here is the amount of damage the gun will do if it doesn't find anything in the damage table folder, which we will get to now. So here we can define certain specific damage for specific body parts. So we can say if we hit an arm, deal 20 damage. If we hit a head, 60, leg 20, torso 40. So you can set up custom damages here. Now, if for whatever reason you're using a custom rig or there's just something custom about your game and your gun shoots a different body part that isn't one of these, it will use the generic damage setting here. So if it's not an arm, head, leg, or torso for whatever reason, it will deal amount of damage. And you can change the type here. So right now the type is set to heat. Our sniper rifle is set up to be the ammo type. So let's look at that. Sniper weapon settings. Semi, so this is a semi-automatic weapon. And our type here is set to be ammo. So in ammo, we can have a reload time, max ammo, not heat per shot, that should not be there. So we have max ammo, damage again, reload time, damage table. Pretty similar stuff. Just with the heat, we have some extra stuff going on. All right, so let's go back up. We went through the ammo settings. Animators, you won't need to worry about this unless you're purchasing or making your own plugins. Basically, this just means we want the movement animator to be applied to our weapon, which allows the crouch animations to work and the shoot animations to work and whatnot. So this basically just means we want to activate the movement plugin. For bullet settings here, we can have raycast or projectile weapons. If you're interested in raycast weapons, we have a raycast test example here. So you can scroll down to the weapon settings in here, look at the bullet settings here, and you can see that it's raycast, and you can see what the different settings are for that. For projectile weapons, we can add a bullet drop gravity. So if you want the bullet to go down, you can set this to be, for example, -500, and you'll see it curve in the air. You can have a max distance on your bullets, a max spread, a minimum spread. The prefab is the name of the bullet that we want to use. So in this case, we want to use the bullet called projectile bullet, which we can find in Lettuce Gun Assets, bullets. And the system comes with projectile and ray bullets. So if you're using the raycast, you want this to be ray bullet. For projectile, you want this to be projectile bullet. And you can also edit these and make your own bullets and set the prefab to that if you wish. React to speed. This is mostly for if your character is going to be moving super fast. If your character is just walking normally, you probably don't want this enabled. But if you're flying like a ship, for example, and you're going 100 studs a second and you shoot, you want your bullet to have that initial speed as well. It doesn't really make a huge difference when we're talking about characters walking around the map. But if you have like a really fast character for whatever reason, you can enable this and it will react to speed correctly. And then this speed is just the bullet speed. For camera settings, camera recoil vector. So every time you take a shot, your camera will move based on recoil. And this vector here defines what happens. So it will go up and to the right. So we'll say, it's going to the right 0.3 and up 0.3. So you can change these numbers to be whatever you want for your weapon. Recoil aiming camera modifier basically just means how much less the recoil should be on the camera while we're aiming. So we want this to be quite a bit less when we're aiming. Rotation offset controls. Actually, you know what? I'll show you an example of that. But first, we have to set the animation so that it looks correct. So click on your animations object here. Click on value and scroll up to animations default. And we are using the rifle weapon here, so click on rifle. So let's say set the animations per the gun. You just set the rifle's animations value to be the correct folder. And now we can hop into the game and I can show you what that rotation offset is. So I'm going to equip my large rifle. And you can see how I'm aiming perfectly straight here. If I change this rotation offset amount, right now it's set to -25. If I set it to say -45, you'll see now that my character is much more to the right than I was before. So depending on how your animations are set up, this number will be different for every weapon. But basically, it just lets you modify the twist of the character to make the gun point in the right spot for whatever animation you're using. And right now, unless you purchase other plugins or make your own, default camera is the only camera type that comes with the system. However, we can edit the camera. So You can scroll down here to starter player scripts, Lattice client, plugins, and then you can go into default plugin, cameras, default camera. So the system comes with over-the-shoulder camera, first-person camera, as well as a normal default Roblox camera. So if you want to disable the over-the-shoulder camera, you can just set use OTS to false. And then that will allow you to be in the standard Roblox third-person camera, but still be able to zoom in to first person. If for whatever reason you want to lock them into over the shoulder and prevent first person, you can just set allow FPS to false. And you can also set both to false if you don't want them to use the custom FPS or over the shoulder implementation. If you want to force them to also be in over the shoulder mode while their weapon is in safe mode, you can set this false to true. Otherwise, when they go into safe, they will go back into default Roblox camera mode. So that's the camera settings. Cursor settings. Right now, this is just set to type. We just want the type to be the default cursor. Once again, you can purchase plugins or make your own plugins to change the default or change the cursor per weapon. But there's also some other things we can do here to set up custom cursors. So if you have a custom image you want to use for your cursor, you can come up here and make a new string value. And you can set this to be named custom cursor. And basically what you want to do is find your image. So let's just go to the toolbox here. And I'll find a custom reticle. Say we want this one. You can copy the asset ID, paste it in here, but just make sure you add in the RBX asset ID : / before, 2 slashes. And that's how you can set up a custom image for your cursor. But we also need to set up the custom size for the cursor. So we can add a new number value here called custom cursor size. And say our image is 30 by 30. We can set that to be 30, and that will set that custom cursor to be 30 in the middle of our screen. So now when we play the game, we can open up our large rifle, and we have our custom cursor instead of the default cursor. But all the other weapons still have the default cursor. Just our rifle has the custom one. For FPS settings, we have the aim field of view. So if you want to aim in more, you can lower this value. So lowering that value makes you zoom in more. You can add a bool value to say if your weapon has a scope or not. Left shoulder and right shoulder, you're probably not going to want to touch those, but that will just define in first person mode where the arms think the shoulders are. Lowered offset is the offset that will happen when you're sprinting or in safety mode. This is a C frame value, so you can adjust these positions and orientation here to get the desired effect. And offset is, once again, a C frame value, but for when you're just holding the weapon normally. Recoil vector is where the gun will animate to when you're shooting. So in this case, we're telling it to come back towards the camera by 0.7 studs. So every time we shoot in first person, the gun will move backwards. Sprint sway and sway size define how the gun moves while running and walking. So when we're walking, we just have a normal sway of 1, but when we're sprinting, we increase that to 1.4 to get a more elaborate sway. For keybinds, we just have default keybinds in here. Once again, you can have custom plugins that have additional keybinds or different products combining together that have multiple keybinds working together. So yeah, that can happen. And movement speeds, you can define the movement speeds of different states. So when we're walking, shooting, running, crouching, or crouch shooting, you can define the walking speed for all those. Now, if you have multiple shoot modes, so say we have here a semi mode, and we'll change the activator type here to semi. We want to be able to define which mode is the default for this gun. So in both here, we have an order value. And we can say here, we want auto to be number 1 and semi to be number 2. So auto will be the default, semi will be the second one. And that's how you can define which shoot mode is the default. Right, so that's all the weapon settings. You have to set these weapon settings for each weapon. I imagine for a lot of you, a lot of these settings will be similar, so you can copy and paste a folder. So say, for example, in my pistol here, maybe my ammo settings, I can just copy my ammo settings from my other weapon and just paste it in here. So that's how you can easily and quickly add settings to multiple weapons. So let's talk about how to set up the damage system. So in replicated storage, inside Lettuce Common Gun System, we have a team groups module, and you can have as many team groups as you wish. The concept of team groups here is people in the same team group cannot damage each other. So in this case, Lettuce Army, Development Team, and Friendly cannot damage each other, but they can damage everybody in the enemy and civilian team group. The color defines what color their bullet will be, but you can also set up custom bullet colors. To set up a custom bullet color, you can come back down to your weapon settings here. Inside bullet settings, you can add a color 3 value called bullet color, and you can change the color to be whatever you want here, and that will set the color for that weapon. So that's how you set up damaging. Just make sure you add your teams here in the correct format, and they're all within the brackets correctly with commas and quotes. If you have issues, feel free to reach out on the Discord server and we can help you out there. To set up a new weapon, all you need to do is add in a few parts. So let's take this pistol, for example, and I will just move it over here. So this pistol, in order to set up the weapon, all you need to have is a normal default Roblox handle with some sound effects in it that you can just kind of copy from one of the example weapons. And the barrel attachment has to be in the correct spot for the barrel. It also, for FPS, needs a right-hand part where the right hand will go, a left-hand part for the left hand. If you want it, it's not mandatory. So in this gun, for example, only has a right-hand part, but I could add in a left-hand part up here. But because it's a pistol, I only want the right-hand part. It also needs an aim part that defines where the camera goes when aiming in first-person mode. And of course, you need your weapon settings folder. And that's all you need to do. Once it's set up with those parts in the weapon settings folder, you can just use it as a normal weapon, and the system will automatically detect it, and it will work as a weapon in the system. We also have some particle effects in Lettuce Gun Assets effects. So these are different effects that happen when you shoot different materials, and you can change these to be whatever you want as well. I'm pretty sure that covers everything. If I missed anything or you have any questions, feel free to reach out in the Discord server and we can help you out there. A link will be in the description. If you want to purchase this product, we'll also have a link in the description for that. We do offer Robux sales, and you can create a ticket on the website to purchase with Robux. Sorry, ticket in the Discord server to purchase with Robux.